Elazar, Ashkechei leZiri. So we'll say when Rabbi Elazar went to Eretz Yisrael, he found Ziri. Amarle, Ika Tana Da'asne l'Rav Kichol. Can you point me to the person who taught Rav his halachos concerning Kichol, concerning the udder? Remember again, yesterday we got into the already a few days ago, we got into the discussion regarding the udder of the animal and understanding, of course, again, the idea that the udder presents a unique halachic issue, given the fact that, of course, it is meat, it is basar, but at the end of the day, it also has chalav in it. So what's the status, ultimately, again, if you end up cooking this kichol, both itself as well as with other items? So comes along Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar comes to Eretz Yisrael, he asks Ziri, and he says, can you point me in the direction of who taught Rav his particular position when it comes to kichol? If you look at Rashi, third line down from the top. Tasni l'Rav Kichol. Yesh kan mi sheshana l'Rav Kichol shebishlo below kriya aser ba'achila. Remember again, I will say this is what's the second version of Rav, and in the second version of Rav paskind that halacha l'maisa, if you cooked the udder without cutting it previously, meaning, remember, the second version of Rav was you have to cut the udder in order to be able to go ahead and get the milk out, and if you cooked the udder without first cutting it, then halacha l'maisa, again, the udder would be aser. So Rabbi Elazar is trying to find who taught Rav this halacha. So ultimately, again, Ziri points Rabbi Elazar in the direction of Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Abdumi. Amarle. So we'll see what happens. Rabbi Elazar comes to Rabbi Yitzchak bar Abdumi. He says, "No, you taught Rav this halacha by the udder." Amarle, ani lo shani silo. Say no, I never taught Rav anything regarding the udder. So I never taught him anything regarding the kachol, regarding the udder. The Rav, so where did Rav get his shita from? This is incredible. The Rav, bika matzah begader bageder. Rav found an empty field and he put up a fence. Rav found an empty field and he put up a fence. So we'll say, what does this mean? That if you look at Rashi, Rav, when it says that Rav ultimately held that the udder, if it was not good, because remember, understand, the novelty of Rav's sheet is as follows. Milk, when it's in the udder, doesn't have the status of milk. Milk, when it's in the udder, has the status of a part of the animal. As such, again, if you cook an udder in milk, halacha l'maisa, that's not basar b'chalav, right? If the udder were to express its milk, and then you were to go ahead and cook the udder with that milk, that would be basar b'chalav. But any milk that's absorbed inside of the udder is considered as part of the flesh animal, much as we'll see a little bit later on when it comes to the liver. Blood absorbed inside of an organ of the animal is considered part of the animal. We'll discuss this. So therefore, so the Gemara is suggesting over here, or I should say, Rav Yitzchak bar Abdumi is saying, Me'ikra din, the milk inside of the udder is mutter. Rav came along and made a chumrah. That's the lashon of, he found an open field and he put up a fence. It's a chumrah of Rav. I will say, why did Rav make the chumrah? Listen to this. Did Rav ikla litatlafush? Rav went ahead and went to the city of Tatlafush. What happened? Shama lahi isisad de ka'amr lechaverta. He heard a woman saying to her friend, Riva de Bisra kama chalba bay lebashule. So listen to this conversation that Rav overheard. He heard a woman asking her neighbor, if I'm going to go ahead and cook a Riva de Bisra, Rashi says over here, Riva is litra. A litra of meat. If I have to cook a litra of meat, how much milk do you need to cook a litra of meat? This is very much the conversation that Rav overhears. So the Gemara says, Amar, Rav said, Lo gemiri de basar b'chalav aser. These people are so ignorant that they don't even know that basar b'chalav aser. So again, remember, these are not people who are trying to flaunt halacha. These are not people who just simply didn't care. These are people who were so incredibly ignorant. So Rav overhears the profound ignorance, and as a result, what happens? Iakiv v'ka'asr lehu kachli. We'll say, seeing this level of incredible ignorance led Rav ultimately again to create the chumrah and to say that the udder itself is aser. That meaning, in other words, let me qualify that a little bit. Led Rav to say that halacha l'maisa, If, again, you do not go ahead and cut the udder in order to extract the milk, then ultimately, again, the udder will be usher. So we'll say, so therefore, again, the Gemara suggests over here that this was not something that Rav learned from his Rebbe, but rather, again, this was something that Rav, observing the incredible amaratzis, the incredible ignorance that seemed to be prevalent, at least in this one city, Rav felt the need to add an additional chumrah in order to remind people of the halachos of basar b'chalav, and therefore he legislated vis-a-vis the kachol, vis-a-vis the udder. Okay, so we'll say, so Rav Kahana Masni Hachi, Rav Kahana paskind this way. Rav Kahana's version of the events followed what we just stated before. Rabbi Yossi Bar Abba Masni Ana Kechol Shalmanika Shanisilo. I will say, so in a different version of this story, so what happens? Rabbi Lazar goes to find the person who taught Rav this particular halacha, and Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Avdumi said, I taught Rav that a kechol, that an udder of a young nursing animal, ultimately again is going to be asur shanisilo. Umipilpulo shrabichia shanala kechol. So we'll look at Rashi for just a moment. Rav Kana Masni Hachi, kechol manika shaisa manika. So we'll say if the animal was a nursing animal, and therefore as a result there was much milk absorbed in its udders, Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Avdumi says that's when I taught Rav that ultimately again the kachal, the udder, will be usher if you do not go ahead and first cut it before cooking it. But what happened? From the pilpul, from the discussion Rabbi Chia, Rav kind of went on and expounded on this and paskin that halacha lemaisa, even a regular kachal, even a regular udder, if not cut prior to cooking, ultimately will be usher. Look at Rashi, pilpulo Rabbi Chia, shu mechudad meod umevin me'atzmo ukisaver shetalmidav mechudadin. So I will say apparently this is actually quite interesting. Rabbi Chia himself was very sharp, and therefore, again, when he learned things, he understood things without it being stated explicitly. He often assumed that his students were the same. So apparently, again, Rabbi Chia did not explain certain things in Shir, assuming that his Talmidim were as sharp as he was and would understand the nuanced distinctions that he was making. So he was only teaching the halacha vis-a-vis the udder of a nursing animal, of an animal that is nursing, right? Because again, there's much milk. But Rav apparently did not understand this particular nuance, and therefore Rav took the halacha of his Rebbe concerning the udder of a nursing animal and applied it to all animals. Okay, an interesting idea. So the Gemara goes weiter. We're going to see the halacha l'mais in just a little bit. Rav and Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef iklo lebei Rav Papi. So we'll say. So therefore, again, just according to this, we have two different versions. This is operating in the second version of Rav. The second version of Rav is that he paskin that halacha l'maisa, if you cook an udder without cutting it before cooking, remember, cutting it for the purpose of extracting the milk, if you go ahead and you cook the udder without cutting it, the udder will be asr al basar b'chalav. Where did Rav get that from? Two alternate versions. Version number one was a chumrah. It was a chumrah. Rav went to a city. He found profound ignorance regarding halachos basar b'chalav, and therefore created a chumrah regarding the udder. In version number two, ultimately, again, Rabbi Chia only taught this halacha regarding udder of an animal that is nursing because it's saturated with milk. Rav apparently did not understand that his Rebbe was only referring to that particular case, and therefore Rav extended ultimately the halacha of udder to all udders. Okay, now Rav and Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef iklo lebei Rav Papi. What's another ma'isa? Rav and Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef went to the house of Rav Papi. Aisu lekamel tavshila dikachol. Rav Papi served them so a dish made of the udder of an animal, made of kichol. Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef achol. Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef ate it. Ravin lo achol. Ravin wouldn't eat. He wouldn't eat it. Rabbi. So Abai says, Ravin tichla amai lo achol. So we'll say this is actually quite amazing. Abai says to Ravin, he called him Ravin tichla. Rashi says over here, tichla is shochel kover as barabos. Remember again in Aramaic, shin and saf are interchangeable. So remember again, tichla means shichla, shacha means bereaved, right? Means bereaved. So apparently Nebuch Ravin had lost his children. So he was known as Ravin Shichla, Ravin Tichla, Ravin the Bereaved. Said Ravin the Bereaved, Amaylo Achol, Amaylo Achol, why are you not eating of the kichol? After all, Michti, Divisu de Rav Papi, Rav Papi's wife, Barte de Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka. So Rav Papi's wife was Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka's daughter. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka married to Uvda. And Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka was married to Uvda. Rashi is married to Uvda's Zar b'ma'asim tovim. Right? He was very careful. He was very careful with his deeds. He was very meticulous in his behavior. Ilav d'shmiela mi beinasha. Had Rav Papi's wife not heard in her father's home that ultimately, again, what? That the udder was kosher, lo hava avda. She would not make it. So we'll say, it's an incredible ma'aseh. First of all, what it tells you something amazing is the piety of the husband has nothing to do with the kashrus of the home, right? The kashrus of the home is all up to the balabasta, right? Very, very important yisod. So again, I will say, amazingly enough, because I want to point out, Rav and Rabbi Yitzchak are going to the house of Rav Papi. So it's not like they make the argument to Rav, Rav Papi is a big tzaddik. He would never go and eat anything that wasn't kosher. No, it's Rav Papi's wife. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka. She comes from a pious home. If she's serving kachal, if she's serving the udder, it must mean that what? That halacha l'maisa, she has a masora from her father's home, that such a dish is actually permitted. So therefore, again, if she's serving it, it must mean ultimately, again, that it is kosher. Incredible idea. V'sura, lo achli kachli. So both say in surah, they would not eat the udder. That was the minhag in surah. They would not eat an udder. So apparently what this means is, Rashi says, Lo achli kachli legamre afilu tzli v'afilu karu. So remember again, we've seen a number of different ways in which you could apparently prepare the udder in the correct way, right? You could roast it. You could go ahead and cut it. You could cut it and press it against a wall. You could cut it and wring it out. In Surah, the minhag was they did not eat the udder at all. Bepumpedisa achli. In Pumpadisa, ultimately, again, they did eat the udders. But Pumpadisa, achli kachli. So we'll say, fine. So listen to this incredible story. Rami Bar Tamri. So we'll say, Rami Bar Tamri, who's also known as the Mari Bar Dikuli. Who is Mari Bar Dikuli? Mi Pumpadisa was from the city of Pumpadisa. So once again, remember, in Pumpadisa, they went ahead and they ate udders. Ikla lusura b'ma'ale yoma dikipuri. See, he traveled to Surah on Erev Yom Kippur. So we'll say, what happened? Avkinu kuli am lekachlinhu. So let's remember again. So here's the scene in Surah on Erev Yom Kippur. Everyone is throwing their udders into the street. What's the pshat? Because you also remember again, it's Erev Yom Kippur. You have to have a su'udah. The su'udah of Yom Kippur is a celebratory su'udah. Therefore, people are shechting their animals. They're not eating the udders because remember in Surah, we do not eat udders. So what are people doing with it? They're throwing it into the street. So we'll say, so what happens? Shadrinu, so afkinu kuli amal lechachlinu. Shadinu. Azal ihu naktinu achlinu. So we'll say, so what happens? Rami Bar Dikule from Pumpadisa, now is in Surah, collects the udders. And this is going to be his Suda Mafsekis. This is what he's going to eat in Erev Yom Kippur. Aisua lekamed Rav Chisda. So we'll say, they summoned him, they brought him before Rav Chisda. Amrale, amai tavid hachi. Why are you doing this? In other words, they were surprised. He's saying in Surah, we don't eat. Others, what are you doing? Amrale. So Rami Bar Dikuli says to them, Ana, Amrale, me answer them, Yehuda Ana, Dachel. I'm from the city of Rabbi Yehuda in Pumpadisa, where we do eat others. Amarle, they said to him, that's very nice, but you're not in Pumpadisa anymore. Veles lechar. Well, it's actually a very important halacha. Nosten alav chumri hamakom shiyatza misham, v'chumri hamakom shahalach l'sham. Do you not know the halacha that says, Rabbi say, that when you are traveling, it's actually a very important halacha. When you are traveling and you go to another locale, Rabbi say, the chumras of the place that you come from go with you, as well as the chumras of the place where you are currently in go with you. As I will say, this is actually very important. You know, this comes up all the time contemporarily. This comes up with Yom Tov Sheni, right? If an Israeli Jew is here for, let's say, Yom Tov Sheni, I will say, so an Israel, right? Somebody who lives in Eretz Yisrael is not permitted to do malacha befarhasa. You can't do malacha publicly on Yom Tov, which is a very common mistake that people make, that they don't have to observe Yom Tov Sheni necessarily in the same way that we do, but halacha l'maaseh, they are not permitted to get in their car and go travel somewhere, because ultimately, again, they have the chumras of the makom that they're in. On the flip side, they have their own chumras also, which means they're going to have to put on tefillin or whatever. They're going to have to daven a regular weekday daven or regular chalamai davening, depending on what it is. That's the chumri makom where they are, and the chumri makom for where they come. So again, a Jew ultimately again of Chutz La'aretz goes to Eretz Yisrael. Again, this is a more involved discussion, but it's not so pashut that just because you're in Eretz Yisrael that you don't observe Yom Tov Sheni. Because if you're a ben Chutz La'aretz, ultimately again the chumras of your locale, the chumras of your point of origin, go with yours. Again, this is obviously a much more involved discussion, but it's an interesting idea. So what they're saying to you here, trying by the Kuli, it's very nice that you come from Pumpadisa, and it's very nice that in Pumpadisa they eat the udders. You're not in Kansas anymore, right? You're not in Pumpadisa anymore. You're in Surah, and in Surah we do not eat the udders. So listen to this. So says the Gemara, Amarle, Rami Bar Dikuli says, don't worry about it. Chutz litchum achal tinhu. Don't worry about it. I didn't eat it in Surah proper. I went outside of the tchum. In other words, I collected the udders. And Rose said, what does it mean when I ate it outside of the tchum? And Rose say, this idea that ultimately you have to observe the chumras of the locale in which you're in applies to where? Applies to where? When you're literally in the presence of the townspeople. What Rabbi Shmuel was saying is, I took the udders and I went outside of the tchum. Or no one saw what I was doing. Because no one saw what I was doing, therefore, again, I was not violating the norms of the particular locale. So listen to this. So they asked Rabbi Shmuel, he said, tell me, how did you roast the udders? How did you prepare the udders? Amarle beportzani. So he says, I took grape seeds, right? I found some leftover grape seeds by some of the wine presses, and I used it as, apparently dried out grape seeds burn, and I went ahead and I used that as the fuel for the fire to roast the udder. How were you able to use those grape seeds? Maybe those grape seeds came from yayin nesach, right? Maybe at the end of the day, it came ultimately from what? From yayin nesach, from wine. In other words, how do you know those grape seeds were from Jewish wine? Maybe they were from Gentile sacrificial wine, yayin nesach, that was used. Amarle la'achar shnei masar chodesh havu. Ultimately, again, it was after 12 months. Look at Rashi. La'achar shnei masar chodesh havu v'tam seches avodah zara lochim asron yiveshim mutarin ve'elohim lachin kol shemen chodesh. So apparently, again, I will say, even if it was from yayin nesach, those grape seeds lose their identity as associated with yayin nesach after 12 months. After 12 months, they dry out. They lose any association with yayin nesach. Okay, the Dilma the Gezel Hava, but maybe again they were grape seeds ultimately from what? Maybe they were from stolen wine. Rashi says over here. No, I'm sorry, not yet. So maybe they were ultimately again from stolen wine. So to which the Gemara says, Amarle Yeosh Bailim Hava, the Kadhu Bei Chilfi. It was so Rabbi Shmuel says, even if it was from stolen grapes, it's clear that there was Yeush, right? That ultimately the owners despaired of ever retrieving them. How do I know this? Because literally, again, like thistles or thorns began to sprout around the grape seeds. In other words, what was Rabbi Shmuel was saying is old. It's been left there for a very, very, very long time. At a certain point in time, we could assume there's Yeush Bailim. We could assume that ultimately, again, the owners despair of ever retrieving it, and therefore, effectively, it becomes Yeush. Look at Rashi. So Rashi says, "The Kadchu b'Chilfi gadlu b'hem machmas shenirkavu v'na'asu afar." So literally, again, they're so old that there's growths coming from them, and they're beginning to disintegrate. At this point in time, you could safely assume that the owners despaired of ever retrieving. To which the Gemara says, so listen to this. So I'll say, so therefore again, so part one of this is over. So part one, apparently Rami Bar Dikuli effectively diffuses the criticism against him of having eaten the udders. He roasted it outside of the tchum. So I'll say, so therefore again, there's no problem with flaunting the customs of the locale. Right? Because I would never eat it inside Surah itself. I took it outside of the tchum, and I prepared it ultimately again in a way in which there are no problems. Fine, so that part of the story was diffused. Once ultimately they went ahead and they brought Rami Bar Dikuli before Rav Chisda, so Rav Chisda saw Chazieh to lo have a manach tefillin. Rav Chisda saw that Rami Bar Dikuli was not wearing tefillin. I must remember again, This is reflecting a norm that what? They wore tefillin throughout the day. So he said that Rabbi Dikuli, who clearly was a Talmid Chacham of note, was not wearing tefillin. So he said to him, so the Hakazi lo manach le tefillin. Amar le, my time lo manach the tefillin. So Rav Chisda says to Rami bar Dikuli, why are you not wearing tefillin? Amar le, chole me'ayinu. I have stomach issues. V'amar Rav Yehuda, chole me'ayin pata me'al tefillin. And Rabbi Yehuda says that someone who has stomach issues, ultimately, again, is pater from tefillin. Now Rashi points out, why is that? Because since someone with stomach issues presumably has to use the bathroom often, therefore they're going to have to take the tefillin off many times. We're saying this is, by the way, that is indeed how the Shulchan Aruch paskins. If someone has ongoing stomach issues and they feel they cannot wear tefillin for any significant amount of time, they're pater from tefillin. Therefore, again, I have stomach issues, and therefore I'm pater from tefillin. Listen to this. He saw, Rav Chisda saw, that Rami bar Dikuli did not have tzitzis on his cloak. He didn't have tzitzis on his garment. Amarle, my taima, les lacha chute. Why don't you have tzitzis on your cloak? Amarle, talis she'ulahi. So he says that what? Rami bar Dikuli says, it's not my cloak, it's borrowed. It's borrowed. Right? V'amar Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda paskin, that's what? Amar Beis Rabbi say, talis she'ula kol shloshim yom, Petura minat tzitzis. Ultimately, again, if you have a borrowed cloak and you're going to borrow it for less than 30 days, ultimately, again, the borrower is not obligated to go ahead and put tzitzis on his garment. We'll say, just want to point out something amazing. What do you see from this story? Right? We'll say, just want to point out, Rami bar Dikuli is not just poor, right, but ridiculously poor. Right? So again, remember he's traveling to a city. He obviously comes with no provisions. He's eating the piece of the animal that everyone else discards. Right? He's eating the udder. He's suffering ultimately again from some type of stomach issues. He doesn't even own his own clothing. So we'll say, what's the takeaway message? I want to tell you something amazing. You see, we all have an incredible number of excuses as to why we don't go ahead and become incredible, accomplished Talmidei Chachamim and Gedolei Hadar, right? And we have our list, right? I've got pride, I've got so many responsibilities at home, right? I have a career. I got to do this. I got to do that. It's beautiful. And who's going to be waiting for us after 120? Probably many people. But amongst them, Rami bar Dikuli is going to say, really? You had other stuff going on? Did you own your own clothing? Yeah. Did you have what to eat? Yeah. Did you have general health? Yeah. Rami bar Dikuli says, I had none of those things. Yet I became Rami bar Dikuli. What you got? Right? What do you have to say? We'll say it's an incredible, overwhelming musar that a lot of times in life we think that we have exemptions. We have a patur, right? We have reasons why we can't become so great, why we can't become so accomplished in Torah. In Torah, I have so many accomplishment in Torah for the tzaddikim, for the Talmidei Chachamim, for the kolol guys, for the rabbis, for this, for that. But me, I'm a regular guy. I don't have these obligations. But let's say it's incredible. Sometimes you don't understand how many brachos we have at our disposal. How many brachos we have. And here the Gemara tells us these stories of these great... Can you imagine? Let's say, can you imagine what it means to have to go in the streets on Erev Yom Kippur to collect udders? And then once you have your basket of udders, where do you go next? You go to the grape press to go ahead and collect discarded grape seeds. And then where do you go next? You go outside of the tchum, you start a fire, you roast your udders. You don't have to say you don't have tefillin because you're not wearing your own clothes. It's incredible, I will say. It's absolutely incredible. And yet what? Rami bar Dikuli becomes an absolute and overwhelming gadol hadar. We have to think about what we're going to do with ourselves when we grow up. So the Gemara goes weiter. Adahachi aisu lahu gavra. So that was the end of the discussion between Rav Chisda and Rami bar Dikuli. Adahachi aisu lahu gavra delo hava mukar avua v'imeh. It was incredible. So while this is all happening, they brought the guy into Beis Din. Right? They brought the guy into Beis Din. And why did they bring him into Beis Din? Because they were going to punish him because he did not properly honor his parents. As a result, what happens? Kafsua, they literally strung him up. Rashi says, kafsua, they bound him, al ha'omud lahal koso. So So Rashi over here quotes the Gemara in Maseches Ksubos. Supposed to listen to this. So the Gemara says as follows. So they brought a guy who was brought holden to Beis Din because he did not properly honor his parents. And they were going to go ahead and give him malchus. They were going to give him lashes for not properly honoring his parents. Amar Lahu. So we'll say, Rami Bar Dikuli sees this, and he says, Shavkua, you have no right to give him malchus for not honoring his parents. Why not? So the Gemara says, Kafsu Amar Amali Shavkua Disanya, because what we learned in a brayso that what? Kol mitzvos asay shematan schara bitzida. Because anytime I will say you have a positive commandment where the reward is written right next to the mitzvah, ein beis din shalmata musharin Allah. Beis din shalmata doesn't have the right to go ahead and punish for the violation of that asay. But we'll say, what does this mean? So when it comes to kibbut avim, what does the Torah say? What? So that you should enjoy longevity. So Rami Bar Dikuli taught that what? That halacha l'maisa, whenever there is a positive commandment, and the reward for that commandment is written right by the side of that mitzvah, so the Beis Din does not have a right to go ahead and punish for that. Why not, Rabbi Say? Because interestingly enough, if the Torah goes out of its way to say that what? That halacha l'maisa, there's a schar, the only punishment for non-compliance with that asay is what? Is the loss of the schar. In other words, the Torah writes the schar there to say that if you don't fulfill the mitzvah, you don't get the schar. But other than that, there is no punishment that basically. And I want to be clear, understand what's happening over here. They're talking about a case where a person failed to go ahead and actively honor their parents. This is different than actively disrespecting. Obviously, if a person, as we know, the Torah tells us, if you hit your parents, ultimately you're chayiv misa. You curse your parents, you're chayiv misa. What's the case over here? We'll say this is a case over here where a person failed to honor their parents. Well, I'll be an example of this. My father has nothing to eat. I didn't bring him breakfast. That's a case ultimately again where I failed to go ahead and fulfill the mitzvahs asay, the positive commandment. My father needed to be bathed, and I didn't help with that. My father needed an article of clothing, and I didn't help with that. Those are examples of ultimately where what? I failed to fulfill the positive commandment. So they brought this guy into Beis Din to give him malchus for failure to observe the positive commandment of honoring your parents. And Rabbi Bar Dikuli says, you guys are wrong. You cannot go ahead and give malchus for failure to comply with a positive commandment. Why not? Because again, also we have a brayso that says any time that there's a positive commandment and the reward for that positive commandment is listed right by the side of that positive commandment, the reward and punishment are one and the same. The reward for fulfilling the positive commandment is longevity. The punishment for not fulfilling the commandment is you won't have longevity. You won't have longevity, and because that Beis Din does not have the right to go ahead and administer malchus or something like that. So I say, so ultimately again, so what happens? So Rav Chisda says to Rabbi Chama, Amar lei chazina locha de charifas tuva. So Rav Chisda says, Rabbi Bar Tuva, I see that you're very sharp. You're a very smart man. So this is interesting. Amar lei ihavis ba'asay Rabbi Huda. If you are back home with me in the city of Rabbi Huda back in Pompadisa, I would show you my sharpness. As well say, so Rabbi Bar Dikuli was saying is, now that I'm traveling and I'm kind of out of my element a little bit, so my sharpness is not as sharp. If you were to come visit me at home in the city of Rabbi Huda in Pompadisa, ultimately again I would be able to really show you the full depth and breadth of my Torah knowledge. So we'll say an incredible. So we'll say, so just quickly and a bit superficially. So how do we paskin by this concept of the kechol? This is the wrong. This is Arachayim. It's okay. I'll pull it up on here. So how do we paskin? How do we paskin ultimately? We'll say by the case of the udder. So we'll say, so the Shulchan Aruch paskins. If I could bring it up quickly on here, I'll bring it up quickly. But we'll say just commercial break for a second. There's an incredible app, Safaria. You can get it on your phone, Mamish Kala Torah Kula. It's absolutely, especially if you know what you're looking for, it's I can't even begin to describe. Yeah. And it's free. I'm sorry. I should have led with that. It is free. Thank you, Moshe. So I say, here we go. Listen to this. Shulchan Aruch. This is Siman Sadik. Siman Sadik in Yaradeya. So Shulchan Aruch paskins as us. Hakichol asim divrei sofrim. But I'll say the halacha is Shulchan Aruch paskins. The udder is aser midirabanan. Udder is aser midirabanan. She'ein basar shenis bashal b'chalav shchuta aser min haTorah. Because we'll say again for one simple reason. Even if the udder is filled with milk, the milk inside of the udder, we'll say, is what's called chalav shchuta, right? And chalav shchuta ultimately does not have the status of chalav. It has the status ultimately of a part of an animal. Therefore, midoraisa, the udder is absolutely fine. Midrabanan is where the problem comes up. So we'll say, so the rabbis, like we saw, midrabanan, we say that the udder is ultimately going to be aser. So therefore, how do you prepare an udder for consumption? Lefichach im karo umeirek achalav shabo muter litzlosa ula ochlo. Therefore, we'll say there are a couple of possibilities. Possibility one is tear it, right? Tear the udder, make a cut in the udder, tear it. Umeirek achalav, and as a result, the chalav drains out. You are permitted to roast it and to eat it. Vim karo shesi va'arev v'tachol b'kosel achol nishabar lachluchis chalav. So let's listen to this. Essentially, now again, the truth is the siman of kachol, which is siman sadik in Yardeya, is a much more involved siman. We're not going to go through all of it. I'm just going to give you really just a snippet of it. And on the Mosaic of the Shulchan Aruch Paskins Zesal, essentially there are two possibilities. If you just make a cut in it, so cutting in it drains out a good part of the milk, but not all of it. As a result, if you cut it, that enables you to what? To roast it. That enables you to do tzli. Because we saw in the Gemara that tzli itself also is that you extract extra. So if all you're going to do is just make a cut in the kachol, that allows you to subsequently roast it. But you cannot cook an udder under those circumstances. So if you cut it, you can roast it. However, im karo shesi v'aref, but I will say if you cut it in a crisscross fashion, you're making multiple cuts so as to allow the milk to drain. Furthermore, again, v'tachu b'kosel. Tachu b'kosel means what? You are pressing it against the wall, which essentially is you're wringing out the udder. Then under those circumstances, to the point that you've mamish drained the milk, then what? Mutar levashlo im habasar. Then you're even permitted to do bishul, you're even permitted to cook it with other pieces of milk. So you're going to say, so again, so those are the two possibilities essentially in front of you. You can't, one thing is clear, which is you can't cook the udder as is. You have two possibilities. If you want to just simply make a cut, allow the milk to drain on a very basic level, that allows you to roast the udder. Because what you don't accomplish with the cutting and the pressing, you will extract the milk through roasting. If you're willing to cut it shesiva or crisscross and mamish wring it out by pressing it against the wall, thereby extracting the milk, you can mamish even go ahead and cook it with other pieces of milk. What happens if you did not prepare meat? Thank you, meat. So the Gemara says, however, what happens? Ukichol shelo karo. We'll say, what happens if you did not in any way cut the udder? Ben shalktana, ben shalinika, ben shalgedola, asur levashlo, v'im avar ubishla b'fnei atzmo mutar la'achlo. I will say, if you failed to cut the udder and you ended up cooking the udder, if you cooked the udder by itself, the udder will still be mutar. However, again, in bishlo in basar achar misharon osa b'shishim. But I will say halacha lemaisa. If you ended up going, so let's say you didn't prepare the udder, you didn't cut it, you didn't press it, you didn't do anything. If you ended up cooking the udder by itself, the udder will be mutter, which I will say makes sense. Why? Because you're operating under the premise that what midorais. So what's the status of the udder? Totally mutter. So the midrabanan. So midrabanan, if you ended up cooking the udder by itself, the udder will still be mutter. However, what happens, I will say, if you didn't cut the udder or do anything to prepare the udder and you cooked it with other pieces of meat, I will say, what do you require? Ultimately, you require shishim. But I'm going to tell you something amazing. So, in order for it to be mutter, you have to be batal b'shishim. But the udder counts as part of the shishim. We'll say it's an incredible halacha over here. So the Gemara says, "Uvekachol min minyan." So ultimately, again, you need shishim, but I will say in reality, what you really only need is what? 59 other pieces of meat, and the kechol itself counts as part of the minyan of shishim as well, to be mevatel, the milk that is inside of it, and then everything becomes permitted. So we'll say, so the takeaway for our purposes again is as follows. Halacha l'maaseh doraisa, the kechol is totally fine. Midirabanan, the kechol is aser alts basar bechalav. How do you remedy it? Two possibilities. Just a cut, which allows the milk to drain, that allows you to roast it and extract the rest of the milk. If, however, you want to cook the kechol with other pieces of meat, then halacha l'maaseh, in the appropriate manner to prepare it is shesi va'arif, crisscross cut, as well as pressing it against the wall that allows you to go ahead and cook it with other pieces of meat. If you cook the kechol and you did not prepare it prior to cooking, if it's prepared by itself, ultimately, if it's cooked by itself, it's going to be mutter. If it's cooked with other pieces of meat, it's going to require bittul b'shishim, but the kechol itself counts towards the shishim. Good. But again, I want to point out the halachos of kechol are much more intricate than what I'm giving to you, but that's at least the panoramic view, or the what is it, the 1,000-foot view, is that what it's called? 1,000-foot view of Kechol. You'll take a look at Siman Tzadik in Yaradeya, and ultimately, again, you'll see the rest of those halachos. Good, Rabbi say, let's go weiter. Let's go weiter. Amalei Abayla Rav Safra. So we're now transitioning from the conversation regarding the Kechol, now to the halachos concerning the liver. So says the Gemara, Amalei Abayla Rav Safra, Ki salak da halachasam, when you go to Eretz Yisrael, Boy minayu, ask the following question. Kavda ma'asun bey. What is the halacha concerning the liver? Right? Look at Rashi just a moment. Kavda ma'atem noagin bo. Mutar levashal b'kedeira. O aser. So we'll say, now when it comes to the liver, so what are you noheg when it comes to the liver? Look at Rashi. What's your minhag? Mutar levashal b'kedeira o aser. Mipnei shepolit dam. V'afa pishekula dam. Afilu achila achar shepir shiyatzarei dam. So let's listen to this. The liver, in the eyes of halacha, is all blood. The liver is all blood. So we'll say, when the blood is inside of the liver, it's fine, because as we just said before, the same way that milk inside of the udder is not really milk, right? Milk inside of the udder is really udder, right? So too, again, blood inside of the animal, ultimately, again, is still blood. Is still part of the animal. We'll say that's, by the way, we learned this, we actually saw this, we'll see it again. When is blood aser? When you could fulfill the pasuk of ala aretz tishbechenu kamayim. Ultimately, again, blood is aser when it becomes detached from the animal. When it is part of the flesh, it has the status of flesh and not as the status of dam. Therefore, the blood inside of the liver ultimately is mutter. Our shaila is going to be, I will say, when you go ahead and you cook, when you cook the liver and the blood comes out, what's the status of that blood which comes out? So that's what we're really asking. So watch this. Says the Gemara. Kavduma osun He saw, like when he entered Israel, Rav Zurika, he found Rav Zurika, and he said, Rabbi, you knew what's the halacha with liver? Amar le anosh shalkile. Rabbi Ami, va'achel, I cook liver for Rabbi Ami, and he eats it, right? I cooked it. And I will say, when we say bishel, so bishel over here means literally cooking in a liquid medium. I cooked him liver, and he ate it. I took a liver, I boiled it up, and he ate it. So the Gemara says, Ki asa legabe. So when he came to him, he said, Amar le, lemeser nafsha lo kami baili. I'm not worried about whether or not, so say there's really two questions over here. Question number one is the liver itself. If you take a liver and you boil it up in a pot of water, so we'll say, is the liver aser? Now, why would the liver be aser? Because maybe I could say that this, when you boil it up, what happens? The blood comes out, and maybe you will say, so once the blood comes out, that's dam, that's aser. Maybe now what happens? The liver reabsorbs that very blood and becomes aser again. So the Gemara says, I'm not worried about I'm not worried about the liver reabsorbing his blood. Why not? Rashi says, "Lo mi boili the pshitali the chevon the true the hiliflot ulahotzi kol shalo bala." But we've seen this general concept before, which is what the halacha l'maisa. When something is busy exuding, it does not absorb. So when you're boiling up that liver and it's busy going ahead and emitting the blood, I know again it's too busy emitting; it's not absorbing. So that's not my shaila. Ki kami boili. What I'm more interested in knowing is what happens if there's something cooking in the pot with that liver, right? Does the blood exuded by the liver answer something else that is cooking inside of the pot? So the Gemara says, so I don't understand. When it comes to the liver asering itself, you're not concerned with that. Why? Disnan einon ne'aseres. Because I will say explicitly, it says that when you boil up the liver, even though I know that what's happening, the liver is exuding blood, is expelling blood, but the liver doesn't aser itself. Why not, to say? Because why? Because why? Because we assume that when the liver is expelling blood, it is not absorbing anything. That's just the mechanics here. When it's expelling, it's not absorbing. That's pashut. So along those same lines, le'meiser chaverta nami lo tibaylecha. But say in reality again, when it comes to asering its friend, that's pashut as well. This nan, here we go. Hakavet. When it comes to the liver, oseres ve'inon ne'eseres. It asers, but it does not become aser. Which I will say tells you what? That if you're cooking liver in a pot and there's another piece of meat in there, what does the Mishnah say? So the liver will not become aser. Why won't the liver become aser? Again, why? Because it's busy expelling. If it's expelling, it's not absorbing. But if there's another piece of meat in the liver, in the pot with that liver, that other piece of meat does become aser. Why? Because what's happening? It's absorbing the expelled blood of the liver. So ultimately, again, the liver ultimately will not become aser because it's expelling, therefore it doesn't absorb. But the other piece of meat that's in there will absolutely become aser. The Rashi will say. So this nan. Hakavit oseres einon ne'aseres kilomar midapashad lan b'didei desharia alma shmiya lacha hamasnisa imkin lemeiser nami chaverta lo tibayi lacha daha hach mishnah gufat. Now, so we'll say the same mishnah that teaches us that the liver does not become aser when you cook it up, because while it's busy expelling its blood, it cannot absorb. Is the same exact mishnah that teaches me what? That if there's another piece of meat inside that pot with the liver, that while the liver is expelling its blood, that other piece of meat is absorbing it and therefore becoming aser. To which the Gemara says, well, maybe that mishnah is not a raya. Why? Amrle Dilma Hasam Bekavda Disura. We'll say maybe this mishnah is talking about a liver of an animal that is aser. Rashi says kigon treifa. Maybe Rabbi will say this case is something different. Maybe this mishnah is saying like this: if you cook a liver in the same pot as another animal, so ultimately, in the same pot as another piece of meat, the other piece of meat becomes aser. But why? Maybe it's nothing to do with blood, but rather, again, maybe umishum tap of kof yod aleph umishum shamnunisa. Maybe Rabbi will say it's becoming aser because the liver that we're talking about over here is the liver of a treifa. And why is this other piece of meat becoming aser? Nothing to do with the blood of the liver, but rather what? The fat. The fat. Again, remember, even the liver has some fat with it. And maybe this other piece, and this we're talking about a liver of a treifa. Maybe this other piece of meat is becoming aser because it's absorbing of the fat of the treifa. Nothing to do with the blood of the liver. Mishum dama mai. But what happens if you have a kosher liver? What happens if you have a kosher liver and you have another piece of meat in the same pot? Do we say that halacha l'maisa, the dam of the liver, which is now being expelled, which the liver itself does not reabsorb because it's busy expelling, does that get absorbed by another piece of meat in the pot and thereby render the other piece of meat aser alza blood absorption? So the Gemara says, Ki hadar salik ashkechil Reb Zreika. When he came back, he found Reb Zreika again. Arale, hai nami loti bailacha. The truth is, this is not a kasha either. Why not? Da'ana v'yanai b'reid Rabbi Ami. Because me and Yanai, the son of Rabbi Ami, ikla'an lebei Yehuda b'reid Reb Shimon ben Pazi. We went to the house of Yehuda, the son of Shimon ben Reb Shimon ben Pazi. Ukriva lan, get ready for this. This is quite a dish. Ukriva lan kanya bekufya. And he served us up to this Shabbos called trachea in a pot. Right? What's trachea in a pot? This is actually pretty wild. Look at Rashi. Kanya bekufya. Hakanem kala mechuber la hareya v'halev v'kaved v'kol b'smash. This is incredible. So what would they do? They're going to say, if you take the trachea out, so everything comes with it. What's attached to the trachea? The lungs, the heart, and the liver. So sometimes what they would do is they would take this out whole from the animal and cook it up in a pot. So one time we went ahead and we went to the house of Yehuda, the son of Shimon Pazi, and he made us kanya bekufya. It's a crowd pleaser, right? Kanya bekufya, right? He cooked up this whole thing for us. The Rebbe was saying, now why is this important for us? V'achilman, we ate it. The Rebbe was saying, now why is this important for us? Because we'll say this is all being cooked together. Now, presumably, if this is being all cooked together, then I will say, what's happening over here? What's happening over here? The liver, while it's being cooked, is doing what, I will say? Is emitting its blood, right? Now, remember again, what's in the pot together with the liver? All this other stuff, the heart, the lungs, and yet what? We ate all of this stuff. What does this seem to tell us? It seems to tell us that ultimately, again, other items cooked in the same pot with the liver, although the liver is expelling its blood, that blood does not asser other meat inside the same pot. What's the rai? The rai is we ate the lungs, we ate the trachea, we ate the heart. It's mamish, it's a party, right? We ate all of this stuff, and the liver did not asser anything. To which the Gemara says, maybe not. Maskif Ravashi Yitim Rab Shalom me zarkunya, me zrukine the dilma pi kana chutz l'kdeira hava. We'll say maybe it's different. In this case, it could very well be that the way this was being cooked is that everyone knows that to prepare trachea in a pot, what you do is you leave the trachea hanging over the side of the pot. We'll say what happens if you leave the opening of the trachea over the side of the pot? When the liver pumps out its blood, it actually doesn't pump out its blood into the pot. Where does it pump out its blood? Through the trachea. Look at it, it's actually quite interesting. Dilma pikana chutz l'kdeira v'simpune hakaved shovchin derech kana. Therefore, it was like the small little arteries of the liver ultimately pump out their blood, not into the water, but rather into the trachea. Right? But maybe in this kind of case where ultimately, again, the liver is still attached to the trachea, and the trachea ultimately is situated outside of the pot, that the liver ultimately will expel its blood not into the water, but through ultimately, again, the trachea. Because remember, again, the Gemara calls the symponi, which are the small little, I don't know what the technical word is arteries, probably not arteries, but what is it? Capillaries. Good. Small little capillaries ultimately, again, work into the reya. So therefore, again, when the liver expels its blood, it's going to go outside. So we'll say, so that's why they prepared this dish in a very specific way that ultimately allowed the blood of the liver to be expelled outside of the pot and not into the pot. Furthermore, another possibility is inami, when you're preparing this dish, michat havachalet le'meikara. Now both say they would sear the liver first. Look at Rashi just a moment. Inami chalet lehava meikara v'nispashal damo b'sochar. Both say we're going to see in tomorrow's daf about searing a liver. Searing a liver ultimately locks the blood in. When you if you pre-sear, so if you sear the liver before cooking it, ultimately, again, the liver does not expel its blood. Therefore, the blood is cooked inside the liver. Therefore, the liver does not expel any more blood. So therefore, again, essentially what the Gemara is saying is no raya from this case. Why? Because in the case of trachea and apatra, everyone knows that you're preparing the liver in one of two ways. Either the liver is just going to go ahead and expel its blood through the opening of the trachea that is situated outside of the pot, or you pre-sear the liver. And if you pre-sear the liver, ultimately, again, that locks in the blood. Sefer Rabosai, we're still left with our shaila. Our shaila is, here's what we know. We know that halacha l'maisa, that if you cook a liver by itself, that liver does not become aser. Why? Because we assume that halacha l'maisa, as long as the liver is busy expelling its blood, it's not reabsorbing. The shaila is what happens if you're cooking another piece of meat in the same pot as the liver. So the Rebbe said the Gemara tried to prove it from this case. This case proves nothing. So we're still stuck, or it's not stuck. We're still left with that particular shaila about the impact of cooking liver in the pot with another piece of meat. What we have just learned is an interesting idea that if you pre-sear the liver, or if you sear the liver, that locks in the blood and prevents the liver from exuding that blood. Ultimately, what that process looks like and the impact of cooking liver in a pot with other pieces of meat, and Hashem we'll see tomorrow.